Hey everyone, it's Glitchy here, and today we're going to be talking about Marathon, kind of more of a recap, as well as talking about Season 2 and potentially the future of the game. And today we're going to be doing things a little bit differently, where I'm basically just going to be going over a lot of my thoughts about some different things in more of a bullet point fashion, and it'll be much more free flow than how things usually are here. Starting with season 1, I really wanted to go over a lot of the big events that were going on in the game and everything that has been changing, as well as basically the state of the game before season 2. So, one of the biggest things that happened during season 1 was that there were a bunch of different balancing changes all throughout the entire season, including a recon buff, which made recon basically meta for playing on Cryo Archive, as well as a huge nerf to bubble shields, being that they take a lot less damage to take down, as well as making them much more rare instead of them being blue items. Another huge nerf that happened was the Waster, where now instead of it two-shotting literally anything, it only two-shots green shields reliably and can two-shot blue shields, but you have to hit all the pellets to even be able to do that. Another huge issue in Cryo was also grenade spams. So the way that Bungie attempted to handle that was basically making it to where you could only take in a very limited stack amount of them. So instead of frags and EMPs being able to stack in twos, now it's just in one, which didn't really fix anything from my experience. It was more like people, instead of just loading in with a bunch more ammo, they just decided to load in with 8 frags instead of a bunch of ammo, as well as 4 stacks of frags. So I still think there needs to be some work there, even though there was a recent nerf where it takes longer to basically throw nades as well as the blast radius. But Cryo at this time has not even launched in Season 2 yet, so we will see what happens with that. Some more issues with Marathon Season 1 were that there were a shit ton of hackers, as well as just general cheaters. There were a lot of instances of people teaming in Cryo since the player numbers got so low, where basically people would just queue together in Discords, and honestly, I don't even know how they're going to be able to fix that. But one of the huge things that Bungie apparently did was that they improved the anti-cheat. Their security systems did actually cause a notable difference. There was just a lot less cheaters going on, but near the end of the season, it really didn't feel like it was enough, because I don't know how many times I have been tracked across the map by one specific team, because there are cheats that will make it to where you could see inside people's inventories and see if they have a DNA key or any cryo keys. So basically you just rush their spawn, or just rush them in general. You know exactly where they are. You just grenade spam or pre-fire whenever they peek a corner. As many issues as there were during Season 1 for Marathon, one thing was absolutely fantastic with Marathon in general, which was Bungie's communication. They were very on top of basically telling us everything that was going to be happening week after week, balancing, basically changing the game to where there was no real meta that lasted longer than a week. The only one that I'd say did last longer was Recon, but I think that's more or less just because Recon is now actually useful instead of it being a very not great pick as it was when the game launched. And another thing that they announced was that they were going to be pivoting to more casual friendly game modes like Arc Raiders. So more PvE focus as well as PvP light, which there is some stuff with that in Season 2. So now we can finally get to Season 2, which one of the other huge things that happened with the launch, which is still currently going on, but it's going to be ending in about 4 days now, is that there is going to be a free-to-play week. So now there's a lot more people at the launch of the game that are trying it out, and hopefully that is converting to sales. We don't really know. And quite frankly, there hasn't been any announcement of how well it's been doing. But with the free play week, but basically with the launch of Season 2, there was an absolutely horrendous issue that basically caused Bungie to have to delay the update. Not literally, but they had to take the servers offline to even be able to fix the issue. And quite frankly, we don't even know for sure if it was a DDoS attack, which it's been rumored that it was, or if it was just a general server issue. So no official confirmation there, and I don't think we're going to get it since it's been almost a week since it happened, and there hasn't been any word on it. So I think if it would have been a DDoS, then they would have said something, but I think it was just something was going on with the servers. But with the launch of Season 2, we also got a new map, technically being the night version of Dire Marsh. And honestly, the map is great. I think that it is a great breath of fresh air while being something that I have already spent hundreds of hours on, basically. I think Night Marsh, honestly, just brings a much more horror-like feeling to the entirety of Marathon, and honestly, it just feels great. There's little events that can happen around the map now where you can get huge commander convoys and you can get keys from them and get a bunch of good loot, as well as a new puzzle, kind of like the pinwheel on Outpost. And there's also these new enemy types where these zombies are basically running around the map, adding much more to the horror feel, even though I think that they're basically just Screebs from Destiny 2. And there's even like little schizophrenic episodes that you can have around the map where you see like a dust version of the zombies like running around corners and they're not really there. And another huge thing with Night Marsh, as well as I think just the game in general right now, is that the bots feel a lot more aggressive. They feel a lot more similar to how they were when the game first launched, where basically they would just be running at you and doing a lot more damage. I think they also have a little bit more health. I could be wrong. So moving on, we can also get to the new PvP light mode on Survival Night Dire Marsh, which is actually a great game mode for if you really just want to chill and just be able to kind of just do whatever you really want. You're able to do quests, and yeah, you have to bring in sponsor kits, but honestly, it doesn't really matter as long as you're able to get around the bots and are able to position yourself right, because you can basically just go there and farm a bunch of loot. And quite frankly, it's probably the biggest breath of fresh air, and is probably going to be the number one thing that might actually keep players from the free play week. It's definitely like a little less casual friendly than something like a pure PvE mode where there would just be no players, but I think that it's definitely a step in the right direction if they want to get a more casual player base into Marathon, especially when you're loading in on solo. Like, there are literally no rooks playing this game mode because basically there is no reason to play rook on this game mode. So the only notes that I'd really give for the dev team is that I think there needs to be a bit more objectives inside of sponsored survival. And I also think that they need to rotate this specific game mode as the same way that they're basically rotating duos. So have it to where daily the map switches every single time. So, you know, it just adds a bit more variety to the game right now. I don't think that these experimental playlists should just be limited to one single map. I think that if this were going through Perimeter, normal Dire Marsh, as well as Outpost, people would be having a lot more fun with the game, and it would be able to bring in a lot more of the casual people that are trying to play on the free play week. A lot more people would actually decide to purchase the game because they'd be able to experience the rest of the maps in the way that they actually are having fun. With the free play week, I think that the player numbers are looking a lot better for now. We'll actually see how much of a dip the game takes in a couple days now, which I'm hoping that it doesn't take a huge dip, because the lows of Season 1, it was about like 8K per day, which right now, Bungie's only other game that they have is Destiny 2, which is about to shut down development in a couple days now, which I will be talking about in depth when that happens. And boy, that might be an emotional video, but we'll get there when we get there. Another thing I wanted to talk about with Season 2 is that the new guns are absolutely fucking fantastic. The RKK, I think it's called, the little new submachine gun, is absolutely one of the greatest guns in the game. When you are point blank shooting somebody with that, they just go down in an instant. It almost feels like the Waster before the nerf. And the little burst pistol is easily my favorite gun in the game. Easily. It takes down bots, and it's really good in gunfights, and once you get a stock on it, it feels very stable, and getting any attachments on it just makes it 10 times better, even if the gray version is also pretty damn decent. But with that, that kind of wraps up all we can really talk about with Season 2. So Season 3, and honestly just the future of Marathon in general, things are looking potentially bleak. the game really needs a lot more concrete decisions on these new PvP light modes, and also we desperately need to see what they're going to be doing with the PvE modes across all of the maps much sooner rather than later. We need these constantly rotating playlists, much more of them. We need these experiments to last a lot shorter because, quite frankly, I know that they had a huge jump in the player base for that free play week, but it really just isn't enough. And honestly, some transparency on the metrics of how successful the free play week was, I mean, that would be nice, but I don't really expect it past what we're able to see past the Steam DB numbers and Steam charts, because quite frankly, no company really likes to say that they're kind of like falling off a cliff or anything, and Sony especially probably isn't very happy right now. But another huge thing that happened with the launch of Season 2 was the item economy got completely ruined, basically, because one, you had the sponsored survival, which can give you a bunch of purple gear, and basically anybody who was attempting to log on to Marathon during the time period where the servers were basically killing themselves, everyone got 8 kits of blue stuff and purple items, and basically there's a lot of people running around with purple gear. Like, I still have some buddies that have their purple sponsor kits and some of their blue sponsor kits. So it's kind of an issue that won't really matter once Cryo comes around, because a lot of people are just going to be getting a bunch of loot from that map anyway. But it's still a bit of an issue for the first week of play. Like, I don't know how many times I've loaded in with free kits and I immediately get killed by a purple team, and I know for a fact that they probably didn't have those purples because they looted them. It's probably because they were given them. So it doesn't really feel great, and I'm sure that it doesn't feel great for the free-to-play players either. But even with the launch of Nightmarsh, I think the need of a new map for the future of Marathon is pretty desperate right now. I love Nightmarsh. I love the way that it feels. I actually prefer it to daytime Dire Marsh, but I won't lie, I'm getting really bored of playing Cryo. For the past month and a half, I have exclusively logged on to play Cryo because, especially like when we got deep into Season 1, it was the only map that was basically worth playing. It's the only map that people load in with loot, and it's really the only map that has anything that's worth a damn, especially since one of the most fun activities on the map is doing compiler. And the only way that you can do compiler is getting DNA keys from the vaults on the map. So I think a lot more variety is needed. I think the puzzle room on Nightmarsh is a huge step in the right direction. I've only gotten one clear of the puzzle room. It's really hard when you do it with duos, and it's basically impossible doing it on sponsored survival since you don't have any time, you don't have good enough loot, and it's just really fun. They need to do more stuff like that. I think that Perimeter needs an event like a boss, and same thing with Pinwheel. I don't know why the main room in Pinwheel that everybody's trying to get to by hitting the 2 buttons doesn't have some kind of boss fight in it. Another huge issue with Marathon right now is that the game still desperately needs modes where a lot more casuals are able to play it, and I think the outcry from the community right now is that this game needs to kind of focus more on adding some arena shooter modes. I think that if we had a straight up big team battle game mode in all of the different extraction maps, like something like Battlefield, I don't even know, I think it would add a lot more people to the game. I think it would be a lot more fun as well. The gunplay in this game is fantastic, and it definitely fits with that kind of style of gameplay, I feel, if they were to actually just commit to it. And even a general confirmation that these kind of modes would actually make their way into the game would probably get the entire community very excited, and might even force a lot of the free-to-play players to buy the game just so that they can wait for this, because that discount is pretty steep and they might want to jump in on that. I also think that if the free-to-play players, like if there isn't a huge return on the discounted game right now, then I don't think that Marathon being a paid game is going to last for very long. I think Season 3, if there isn't a huge success on console as well as PC combined, Sony might actually just pull the trigger on making the game free to play. I don't think that they're going to shut down the game at all. I bet Bungie probably has funding for like a year of Marathon, but I definitely don't think that Sony is willing to basically gatekeep the game behind a price for very much longer, because if it keeps on just kind of sticking with being a paid experience, they might actually detract people from trying out the game at all. And if it was free to play in general and people were able to try out maps like Cryo, then they'd probably have a huge return just off of microtransactions. I know that in past videos, I have talked a lot about how much I dislike microtransactions, but I do understand that, that is kind of required for free to play, as well as even like paid experiences now to actually get a lot of their money. So I guarantee that if this game went free to play and they started cranking out skins to basically fill up the marketplace, a lot of people would probably buy skins, especially for characters like Thief and Vandal and Recon. And honestly, I am pretty excited for the future of Marathon, and I can't wait to see how Cryo feels this season. I want to see more of these experimental playlists. I want to see what they're doing with PvE, especially next season. I just think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I think Season 2 is a great jumping off point. So I want to end this video off by saying, if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like on the video and maybe even subscribe if you're feeling so kind. But I will see you guys when the new update comes out for Destiny 2, and I'll see you guys when I see you. This is Glitchy, signing out.